Okay. I'm going to make this as simple as possible so you can understand it. This is the book that you want to read. Pray, hope, and don't worry. So what happened was after he died, all the people that consider themselves his spiritual children, like he talks to them on a regular basis, well, they published all the letters that they wrote to him and and his answers back to them, so his real letters, and then all of the miracles that came from him praying for them, okay? And for a while, you know how the Vatican has to be really careful that somebody's not just making something up to become popular. And so even though that pained him terribly that they didn't believe that he had the stigmata, so he had 2 real holes in between in each hand. He had a hole in his side where the Jesus was pierced with the, by the Roman soldier. And then he had holes in his feet. But his hands bled 24/7, all the time. And technically he would be dead, because that's not possible. You can't survive that. And of course, the little town he lived in Italy, everyone knew he was genuine. They knew him as a child. They watched him grow up and become a priest, and they knew that he never lied ever in his whole life, and that the stigmata was real. And they all went to mass and they all washed his hands bleeding, and he would cover them with with gloves, and blood would still come through. So at one point there was such a frenzy, so once people found out that he had the stigmata and that he was constantly being beat up in his cell by the devil, like physically. So he'd go to bed alone in his room, right, and lock the cell door. They were very small on purpose. This was a monastery of complete, no material objects, right? Not like some of the monks today. This was, you owned nothing, right? It all belongs to God. So you own nothing. You have a tiny cell to sleep in and pray in when the bells ring, when you're supposed to pray, whatever, 3 a.m., 5 a.m., 8 a.m., noon, all of this. So anyways, so he would also hear confessions for like 14 to 24 hours a day. And news spread throughout Europe that he was the holiest man in the world, and they all saw the stigmata, and that anytime someone actually went to confession with him and he prayed for them, the stories in here are just remarkable. Like, they're impossible cures, and asked Jesus to cure him or cure someone, and they were cured. It was over. And there was such hysteria that the church at one point told him he could no longer do mass. Now this, okay, his masses were 2.5 hours long. Sometimes just him holding the host up was 2 hours long. And he would just cry and cry. He literally saw Jesus in the host. Like, there was no ifs, ands, or buts. And anyone that witnessed a mass of his, they didn't know that it was 2 hours long. It felt like 5 minutes. I mean, it was remarkable, to say the least. So, the church became extremely leery, and they needed to investigate everything and make sure that Satan wasn't somehow involved in this, or or that there was anything that went against the doctrine of the faith, or that could lead the faithful in the wrong direction. So they wouldn't let him say mass, and being the saint that he is, even though it pained him terribly, like him, that was his whole goal. Like, there was nothing he wanted to do more than say mass. So they took it away from him, and he just prayed unceasingly, and he got even more attacked by Satan in his cell. So he would go to bed looking fine, and he'd wake up and go meet with the other brothers, and he'd have black eyes and scratches and marks and cuts that all over from fighting with Satan in the middle of the night. And all of it's documented, and everyone, all of the other brothers wrote the Vatican that he was not lying. They sent atheist scientists to study his hands and feet and other wounds, and they all said that there was no scientific explanation. So finally the church deemed it a real miracle, because there were only a few saints that ever got the stigmata, okay? And we had enough science by then. I think this is like by the late 1900s. I think it was late 1800s. I can't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure it was late 1800s. But they had enough science to say, there's no rational explanation for any of these wounds that aren't healing that he's had for 20 years. And clearly he's not lying. So he was allowed to do confessions again and masses again. And then the lines even got longer. Like, people would get up at 2 a.m. and wait outside for 8 hours for the 8 a.m. or 10 a.m. mass, so they could just have a chance to. People's letters, they said, if I could just see Padre Pio, I would be healed. If I could touch him randomly, I would be healed. And there's a story in here that he got really angry at this woman that grabbed him because she wanted to be healed so bad. And he asked her, do you want to be healed because, like, I don't know, he could also tell if you wanted it for the human reasons versus godly reasons. And so it was like he could read everyone's mind during confession. Hold on, Saints. So if you lied during confession or was a half-truth, he would just tell you to get out, that you were lying, and to come back. So anyways, he was absolutely loved, cherished, but he was also a hard ass. Like, you had to be completely telling the truth and in love with Jesus. He could see right through you. And that was one of his greatest attributes. And they talk a lot about it in the book. The other thing Padre Pio can do, even after he is gone, and even while he was alive, he can bilocate. So for his spiritual children, so you can just ask Padre Pio to be your spiritual father, and then you can pray all of his prayers in the back and all the novenas. But all of his spiritual children that he knew really, really well, he said that he was not going into heaven. He would stand outside of it or wait in purgatory until every last one of his spiritual children enters heaven. So he's very dedicated to people that he knew personally, that, you know, he was their priest since they were little kids. And the other thing was, when his body was exhumed, to go travel around. You know how they rub cloth on the bones or body of a saint? So, Saint Anthony, we have a piece of his rib bone, the church does, and a piece of his leg, femur bone, and they're first class relics, and so they rub cloth on them, and you can get the cloth rubbed on an item of yours, and then you have a second class relic to pray with. So people that he touched their cloth, they have first class relics while he was alive. But even while he was alive and somebody flew back to the United States and they were in the hospital, and they would pray to Padre Pio, he could bilocate. So he's still in Italy, right, in his monastery, but he would be also truly fully present, standing in the room of his spiritual child, the person in the room. So he could bilocate, which was very rare. So people with that, there's like maybe 3 or 4 out of billions of Catholics and millions of saints. Like, if you ever look at the Big Saint book, their names no one's ever heard of. There's so many saints. Only, you're talking about just not even a percent, 1%, like 0.001% of the saints had the stigmata and the ability to bilocate and be 2 places at once. So, if you want anything done, healed, I'm preaching to myself right now. I'm like, why haven't you been doing this for yourself? This was a call from God that you were trying to watch this movie, because I need to be, you know, back talking to Padre Pio like I used to all the time, and get my heart healed and everything else. So anyways, and my friends, because I just found out my girlfriend has breast cancer last night, so I was devastated. It's been a really long, awful week. But anyways, I would just literally focus on him as your patron saint, and then just order Pray, Hope, and Don't Worry from Amazon. And it has all of his litanies that he personally wrote. that you can just read through them and pray them, and your whole life can change. So, anyways, that's the story of Padre Pio. The letters in here from his spiritual children are mind-boggling. And you can tell that they're not bullshit. None of it's a lie. So voila! Here's your new saint. Saint of the year for us. To cure heart problems and any other problems. Okay, bye.